Order the Greater Leesburg Community Redevelopment Agency agenda. This is Monday, March 27th, 2023, and it's 5:01 p.m. Would you please stand for the invocation and the pledge? Heavenly Father, we ask that you would watch over this group tonight. Help us to make good decisions for the city of Leesburg. We ask this in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll move on to item number 2. Could we get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second. Discussion? Roll call.
Sorry. Commissioner Stevens-Coney. Here. Commissioner.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Approving the minutes.
Okay. Yes.
Commissioner Connell.
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman.
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson.
Yes.
Commissioner Barry. Yes. Commissioner Reed.
Yes.
Chairperson Burry.
Yes. Would someone please introduce the resolution 3A?
Introduce and ask you to read by title only.
Resolution of the Greater Leesburg Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the Commission to execute a resolution approving a fiscal year 2023 facade, sign, and landscape grant award to Mount Ararat Metropolitan Missionary Baptist Church and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion?
I had concerns in the past with using this towards nonprofits. I'm just going to leave it at that.
The only comment I have is it says 20,000. Nowhere in here does it say it's capped. I saw 3 quotes, like 17, 20, and 28. I just want to be sure we're capped at the lesser of 20 or the contract price. And usually that's in the packet. I did not see that in here anywhere.
Yeah, we might have missed it then in the packet, but the grant policy is 20%. 80. It's an 80-20 grant, so the city pays 80, the applicant pays 20, up to a maximum out from the city of $20,000. So that would go for this grant as well.
Which one are they going with? Because one of them was actually below 20,000.
I don't know. I think we'll award up to 20 because there was one that I think they got one quote that's a little higher, but it's all reimbursement basis anyway. So if they come in at the low one, you're only providing the 20% of the low cost. So the wording.
The 80% of the low cost.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Up to 20.
Yeah, and I've made myself clear on this before. I'm not in favor of issuing these types of grants to any non-for-profits, any churches, or any institutional type things that do not pay property taxes on the property. So I'm a no on it. But do we have any other discussion?
I'd like to say that I understand the perimeters of what we're discussing. And I understand further that we want to abide by. However, with regards to the Mount Ararat Metropolitan Baptist Church, one of the oldest black churches in the community, it was a vital place for meetings during the Civil Rights Movement. And it is, or was, the home church of Reverend H.P. James, whose family still resides in the Leesburg area. It is a church whose name stands for itself. Some of the parishioners of that church were the Reeves family, the Barrett family, and the Lynham family. And again, I understand the difference between tax-paying and non-tax-paying. To add to that, you mean nothing that I've said was
Well,
We all heard you.
Everybody watching TV didn't.
Yeah, what I'm saying is I'm speaking on behalf of the longevity and the historical aspect of a church that has been very vital to the community since the 18th century. So while I do understand the law and how it is to abide, keep in mind that the members of that church pay taxes. And I would like to see us give further consideration for what the grant calls for. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to add one thing as well. The location of the church is on Main Street, right on the main corridor coming into the city. And if I'm not mistaken, we were doing major landmarks to identify churches. And again, my stand is we've given to other churches, and I know about the nonprofit, but the location of this church is right on Main Street, right after the split of the Sunnyside and Dixie. So it's an entrance to coming into Main Street.
Any other comments from the commission? Public comment?
Hi, my name is Darrell Reeves. I'm the pastor of Mount Airy Metropolitan, and we would really appreciate your consideration. We've been in this community for 144 years. During the pandemic, we were the center of a disbursement of over 10,000 boxes of meals, including meat, dairy, produce, and various other items. We've supported this community for years. The chair of our trustee ministry is Rodney Rocker, who is the proprietor of Rocker Cusack Mortuary, who is a taxpayer. So we're a very solid community. The Lynhams, the Browns, the Barretts are still members of Mount Airy, and I'm a Reeves, but not that Reeves. But yes, we would truly appreciate your support and your consideration. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Roll call.
Commissioner Connell,
No.
Commissioner Reisman,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Berry,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens Coney,
Yes.
Chairperson Burry.
No. Okay. We'll move on to item 4, roll call.
Commissioner Connell,
Nothing.
Commissioner Stevens Coney,
Yes. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I am here and not here, right? I attribute it to the fall that I had. Apparently, it affected more than my back, right? I have some very interesting things from the intra-community of the Greater Leesburg CRA area. And those 3 things will take longer than we have this afternoon to go into them. However, namely, they are historically distinguished churches, historically distinguished properties, as well as East Community pavilions for the people. With regards to the first one, historically distinguished churches, we do have members of those particular churches who are here today in person to verify that, yes, this is a worthy activity or project. These are churches who housed black students in the middle 18th century when there were no schools for blacks. And those churches are St. Stephen African Methodist Episcopal Church, and we have the head steward, Mrs. Carolyn Samuel, and Mount Olive Metropolitan Baptist Church, and we have in the Baptist Church, we call them, well, the head person, one of the head persons, and that is Mrs. Connor. and there may be an additional one. However, these are people who are here to say tonight they think that it's a very worthy cause, because what happens is when our people intermingle into our communities and they can see and take pride in those kinds of things that are marked, that goes back in our history and our heritage. So I'd like to offer a motion that we would schedule a workshop, please, to go into the discussion and hear more about these vital projects. An additional project is the distinguished properties. We'd like to have identified in our communities that go back into our history. So I'd like to offer a motion, please, that we schedule perhaps April 1st as a workshop for these items.
Yeah. Maybe April 3rd. No, I'm sorry.
April 3rd?
April 10th.
April 10th? Sure, as long as we have the time.
And may I ask questions at this time? The workshop will be to discuss further the
That's what I'm
plans that
asking,
you're
yeah, for that, yes, making a motion for that date to discuss further, to workshop these items.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to meet and have a discussion of a workshop to discuss the items and what you're addressing.
So we need a second for that.
should be a second.
I thought a second. I thought we had a motion.
She made the motion.
She made the motion, so you were seconding it,
Ms. Berry.
Commissioner Berry?
Oh.
Ms. Coney made the motion.
I second it. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Can you get with the city manager just to give him the info so we can maybe have a little more detailed info at that meeting as well?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. We've discussed some of these items previously, so our illustrious Mr. Al is familiar with them.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Eastman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens Coney?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Sure.
Chairperson Berry?
Yes. We'll move on with roll call.
Commissioner Eastman?
Nothing this evening.
Commissioner Peterson?
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Berry?
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Reed?
No.
Chairperson Berry?
Nothing tonight. We'll move for adjournment. Motion?
Adjourned.
Seconded? Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're doing Montclair.
Is there something else? Yeah.
If you want me to tee this one up.
I just want to get the agenda up so I can see it.
Do you want to do it old school with me?
Yeah. That's all I'm having a problem with.
What's this? I can't be reached. Oh, there you go. It's this one
Yeah,
right there.
it's right here, right?
Yeah.
That's the one I keep clicking on.
Oh, no, go backward.
Get out of that?
Yes, sir. Then come over here and hit either agenda, click it.
This one?
Yes, sir. And then either agenda or packet. Why is it coming?
I don't know. We got a copy. All I was looking at was this, so that's fine. No, I've already got that one, I think. It's on this other, I've got two. I had two.
Greater.
Or is it downloading? It's okay.
No.
We got it. So who are we waiting on Kevin Conley?
It's 5:15. He didn't say he was coming or not, so you can go ahead if you want. How y'all doing? Great.
Oh, so it wasn't just me. Wasn't.
We all lost internet connection. Mine was pulled up already, but this video was streaming to the other. I think I lost my network.
He doesn't have his either.
I got a piece of paper. That's all I need right there. Okay, we got to go. Y'all ready?
You're not coming up either? No, yeah. IT knows, so. Yeah.
Y'all good to go? We have to just. Is there anything you have to have off there? Or? 'Cause we're gonna
You
just-
want to see my agenda? Oh, okay.
Here we go.
17.
We'll call to order the Carver Heights, Montclair Area CRA meeting. It is Monday, March 27th, 2023. It is 5:17. Call the meeting to order. We've already had an invocation and the pledge in a previous meeting. I'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Jasper? Yes. Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry? Yes. Chairperson Burry?
Yes. We'll move on to consideration of the food pantry, the CDBG project. Have Al kind of lead us off with it.
Yeah, I'll tee this up for the commission real quick. Last meeting, when the commission decided to transfer the project's locations from the McCormick Street address to the, for lack of a better road, I think the formal name is 468, right? Also known as the Red Road, next to the community center. In any case, I informed the commission that I didn't think that CDBG at Lake County was going to have an issue with the move. So when you formally voted on it, you didn't have all the information. So that's my fault. Since the meeting, Sandra Wilson and I have got back with the CDBG folks to inform them that this body had changed the locations. They then informed us that changing the locations would do a couple of things. One, they felt like that it substantially changed the grant application, and the grant application has two parts. It has a public hearing part, which the county conducted, and it has a financial timing part because of the cycles. With the change, they felt like there needed to be more information done to examine the costs at the other location. Then that would trip another public hearing. And so, long story short, the county determined that it was a substantial change, and moving the location in this current cycle wasn't going to be permissible because they felt like they would miss their federal guidelines. So basically, the federal government has some issues from HUD. That's basically you got to spend the money or lose it, and spend it in the right time. The county did say, however, that the location change was probably fine, but it would trigger a reapplication period for the next cycle. So they informed us through Sandra that they needed to know by the end of the month what we chose. So I thought you probably should rehear that before you make a final determination on this. I know you made a final decision decision on it before, but the information was not that dire that it's kick you into the next cycle. So in essence, this cycle, you lose the grant funding if you go to the other location. And if that's okay with this body, then that's okay. If it's not, we can still go back to the county and get everything moving forward. But after the city and attorney and I discussed it, we thought you probably needed to add that information and revote.
Al, can I say something, Chairman? Can I say something? Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As last time with the last meeting, I disagree with the amendment to make the change the location, and now I really don't want to take the risk to lose the $250,000. Excuse me?
Louder.
Oh, sorry. I was talking to the mic. I don't want to take the risk to lose the $250,000. There are people within the community that would like to see this program move forward. Also, too, I gave Anna and Andy a portrait so you guys can have an idea. This is the building that's at hand, so the subject of discussion, 701 McCormick Street. We would take the 750 and retrofit it. As you can see, the front and the back of the building. The roof is also caved in as well. There's adequate parking, and it's also adjacent lots to Berry Park, which can provide substantial parking as well. I know last time there was a commotion where we had some residents come to the mic, some pastors come to the mic and talk about traffic. Traffic does not have to be an issue if we mitigate the hours of operation. That could be mitigated with hours of operation to redirect school traffic or any other potential traffic. So that's not an issue at hand. And I just think that this would be very befitting for the community to decrease the risk of childhood obesity, and also to increase the risk, the opportunity for affordable food, since we do have inflation currently going on. So people have access to healthy, nutritional food at their disposal. And this location is primary, since it's in a central location within walking distance and also a good driving distance as well. Some residents need to have that. So I think we need to do what's best for the greater good for all mankind. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yes, I'd like to speak. I remain committed to relocating the project for the simple fact that I live in that neighborhood, and I too have polled the areas, and I have signatures here to prove, in which I asked on McCormick, Chester, as well as the street adjacent to where the across street from McCormick. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name. They all are in agreement that we definitely want a food pantry. That's not an issue, and I'm speaking on that still. It's just I don't feel that it should be in a residential neighborhood. So I'm not going to keep running this down. Our vote was 5-1 that stood. I understand the fact that we would lose the money of $250,000, which is not the last thing. If we were approved the first time and we are doing a good cause and the people in the area are supporting it, I'm thinking if we go back and reapply, we would possibly get again. I can't speak on that to truth, but we don't know. I don't see the rush. There's a lot of homeless people. There's a lot of people hungry. There's a lot of people in need. I think if we really do our due diligence and do the research and prepare, but not in a residential area. No one's residential area. That's what I'm asking.
Can I make another comment?
Sure.
I, too, petitioned the neighborhood, and I went beyond the scope of McCormick, Chester Street. I went to Beecher Street. I went to Tuskegee Street. And I have close to 200 signatures of people who are in agreement with the food pantry being at this location. So it was just not that central location, but it was for the greater area of Carver Heights, just not that central location. And also, too, the mention of residential area. You're going from one residential area to the other residential. The house on 468 is a house that's, I believe, is zoned residential. Is that correctly? And I'm not sure about the zoning, but
I don't know what the zoning on that house is.
Okay. Well, I know there's potential. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's potential development coming forward. I think Peacock Corporation is supposed to be doing some development there. I'm not sure if that's the truth
I think Peacock was looking at a Pixiola address, if I'm correct.
Oh, it was okay. I thought it was this location because you're going from one residential to one residential. And once again, I stand firm on we have the approval in place for this location at 701 McCormick. Let's move forward with that area because I do not want to take this risk of losing this money. And keyword is possibly. Nobody can give me a certain definite yes or no, you're going to have the funds for next year. I just don't want to take that risk.
I'm going to stand on our vote from the last meeting and keep it at the 468 location.
Any other comments from commissioners? Public comment?
Again, we surely desire for a food pantry. We support that concept. In fact, Mount Airy was the key for the food pantry distribution during the pandemic. But again, we got to be very careful that we don't begin to do to our communities things that cannot be undone. We do not want to be the site where you come in and disrupt ability for people to live in their homes and to function for this thing when you can have a commercial or industrial site where you can actually do this kind of thing. It's a great thing. We support the concept. But let's not do to our communities again and again the kinds of things that have been done to our communities that we're trying to come up out of now. And that's our only reservation.
I'm Reverend Matthew Atkins, and I pastor the Mount Sinai Missionary Baptist Church on 920 McCormick Street. I'm there every day. I see the traffic. I mean the walking traffic, not the riding traffic, but the walking traffic. I have to pick up paper because of the walking traffic coming from Barris Park right by the place on the site on Chester Street. And when I go to talking to people, especially some of the young, when I talk to them, they are very disrespectful, not only to me, but to the elder people that's in that community. Because I had a lady come to me today, and she was almost in tears about what somebody said to her coming through there. Now, if you put a food bank there, we don't disagree about the food bank, but we disagree about the people coming through on their feet, and they throwing trash out. And I get out there every day and I pick up trash, and we're talking about the people that's disrespectful that will be going to the food bank. And most of those that go in through there are homeless people. I am all for the food bank. I am all for it. But the location in that neighborhood, I don't think so. I don't think we should need to have it there simply because we have elderly live in that neighborhood, right there in that neighborhood. And we don't need another commercial business in that particular neighborhood, in that particular spot. But if you wish to have a food bank, that's fine, but just not in that neighborhood. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Max Parker Jr. I am the former president of West Leesburg CDC. I'm currently a board member of West Leesburg CDC. One of the things I just want to, may I ask a couple questions to Commissioner Jasper?
Sure, go ahead.
One of the things that I think that probably has got not on the same page is that basically when ideas come up, there is no connection to West Leesburg CDC. The people that we know that we have spoken to in the neighborhood do not want this area to be the food bank on the corner of Bradford and McCormick. We've talked to many people in the community, and our count as far as what need to be there is not a food bank for many reasons that's already been spoken about. The problem that we see is that when something come about, again, there's no communication. Again, if you probably have come to us and sit and talk with our board meeting, you can see kind of the problems that we have. And we felt very good about moving it to the corner of 468 and Griffin. I think that'd be a good location. Again, possibly losing this particular grant if we cannot making adjustments to the grant, because grants you could make an adjustment to it. I don't know if that had been approached or not. If you can make an adjustment to a grant, because it's possible to make adjustments to a grant, I don't know. But again, if it can, I think the thing would be solved to make the location on 468. Thank you.
What is your direct question towards me? I'm sorry.
Is that the information that you receive as far as what's going on in the community? Have you shared that with West Leesburg CDC at all?
As far as what information?
The information, any information that you get in the neighborhood. They do a great job as far as the cleanup, we know that. But as far as meeting, since you've been on the commission as for a CRA rep, since what, 2021? Or
No, 2019.
2019, okay. How many meetings have you been with West Leesburg CDC?
Excuse me, if you will, we're talking about the petition in the West Leesburg CDC, and I think that's irrelevant. I do live in this community, and we're talking about the petition for the food pantry and not the West Leesburg CDC.
It's important that you understand what I'm saying.
Okay, go ahead.
Because of the community, because of what we have done with the community of West Leesburg, Carver Heights, Montclair, and Woodland Park, we know what the people want. My question to you is this. If you have information, any type of information, don't you think we can help you distribute it out? We have not received anything from you at all.
This is a public forum. Anybody is open to go online and get the information. I have the same information that anybody else can get.
That's not the point I'm bringing up.
Okay, go ahead.
My question to you is that, one question.
Go ahead.
How many meetings have you attended, a board meeting at West Leesburg CDC?
I am not a board member of the West Leesburg CDC, and I have not been invited to the board meetings at the West Leesburg CDC. Therefore, I don't believe it's my prerogative to invade on a personal board meeting of the West Leesburg CDC. So once I get invited to a West Leesburg CDC board meeting, since I'm not a board member, I will come to a board meeting. That's like me going to SunTrust or Truist or any, I just can't walk into a board meeting when I'm not a board member.
You have been invited. I invited you.
You're not the president.
No, when I was president.
You're just the one person. Currently, you are not the president.
You know, I'm not going to debate you. I apologize to you, but I'm not want to debate you. My question was, and you didn't answer the question, that you had never, ever attended one of the meetings as a representative.
That's not true, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, board members, let me just say, Pastor John Christian of the Christian Worship Center, reside at 903 County Road 468. If the discussion tonight is to move the food pantry, I know it was a 5-1 vote. Well, I strongly disagree with you moving it to 468. That's my neighborhood. That's where I live. That's where my church is operated. I think you have a very valuable piece of property that could be used for revitalization. And I think since you got a year since, if you're going to vote to get rid of the grant, I would suggest you have a workshop and talk about a better location for this location, for the food pantry, because it seems like it's not an urgency to give up $250,000. So this board votes not an urgency. I don't think that's a good location either, because it is a residential neighborhood. It's coming off 468. Speed limit's 45 miles an hour. So now you're going to cause people to go get food from the food pantry, going back up on 468. So I think you create another problem. Then you have 3 acres of land behind the resource center that could be prime for redevelopment. So you tile of acre land, major prime property owned by the city of Leesburg that you paid about $180,000 for. So I think that's something you may want to just take a look at. As the previous speaker said, you haven't talked to anyone. No one talked to my church. No one talked to my community and said, do you want this in your neighborhood? So we're picking neighborhoods. I don't prefer that to be in my neighborhood. That's my neighborhood. We got a big development coming, Terra Oaks, 900 houses behind 468. So that may not be the good location either. So you're going to run that in the neighborhood you go into. And I would suggest if 701 McCormick Street is not your location, the next item should do is to demolish it, because the city of Leesburg now owns a piece of property that's a detriment to the entire city. So if you vote not to go for 701 McCormick, your next item should be to demolish it ASAP. Thank you, sir.
Any other public comment? Any other commission comment? Roll call. I guess actually we need a motion because it wasn't a resolution. It's just a discussion. So where?
You're right. We didn't. So it would just be a motion to continue the The motion would be to I'm say this in Commissioner Berry's position, it would be a motion to continue to consider the food pantry at the CR 468 location and not submit the grant for the McCormick location.
Can we make that? Can we make that 468 or other locations based on comments made tonight? I mean, if we're giving up the grant, I mean, we can reevaluate
Yes,
everything.
I wanted to make a comment after Pastor Christian. Thank you for your statement, because you're exactly right. I'm doing exactly what was done to our area without doing any research or inquiring for the area. And as a matter of fact, my family is right across the street from the area in which we're talking about on 468, so I'm well aware. However, I still say not in anyone's residential area. I am willing to discuss further, and I will say let's go back and reapply at that time, have further research for 468, and let's add any area to consider. It's a good deal. I think it's a great look, and we're helping the community for all to benefit. But again, let's try to find some area that would not be in a residential area. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion to consider moving the grant for the food pantry to 468 or other suitable property that will be determined in the future.
Yes.
Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Discussion.
So I have a question. So I'm just trying to understand, by approving this tonight, we're going to forfeit the $250 tonight.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable with that. Sorry.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Berry,
Yes.
Commissioner Jasper,
No.
Mayor Chairperson Berry.
Yes. Okay. Roll call.
Commissioner Berry,
Yes, I'd like to add one item, and if I could bring up, as far as getting a list of the city-owned properties that we have for District 1, and I'm requesting that we do no further transfers at this time until the commissioners, the district, residents of the district, and as well as myself, district commissioner of the district, get a better hold and understanding of where we are and what we're doing. So if I could please have further conversation or make a motion, or however we want to handle this.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You want to get a list of all the properties that the city of Leesburg owns
In District 1.
in District 1? Is there any particular reason why? Or
As a new commissioner, I have no idea what's out there, where they're standing, where the status is. Until we can get a comprehensive plan on what's going on, I feel that it would be my best interest, as well as the residents of the district, to know what's available, and if we can, not try and do any further transfers at this time until we can come to a point.
I'm not in agreement with the transfers. I think people should have a right to buy property irregardless. You can get the list, but let people purchase property if they want to. Some people could be in the middle of a transaction of building a home.
Yeah, but I think we're just talking about city property, so
I think Commissioner Berry's asking that we've done a number of title changes and swaps and that type of thing. I think the commissioner's asking that we do no more transfers of title to other organizations in District 1.
Yes.
Until we prepare an inventory list for the commissioner and the commission to review.
I think there is an inventory list already.
There is an inventory list. It's not specific to the district. Commissioner Berry asked me about that today.
Microphone.
Sorry. Commissioner Berry asked me about that today, so GIS is working on it with housing. So we can get a list rather quickly for the CRA board as well as the full city commission.
Because I would like to make an amendment to that. I don't think that we should stop title or transfer. She could have a list, but not stop the title or the transfer of property in that meantime.
do we have any active title transfers going on right now?
There's a couple that are sitting on my desk where there's been requests for some consideration to donate some properties. So I would need to put that together. But the answer is yeah, I think there is.
May I also add, I would like to suggest if we could use the same template like the city uses for development so that we could be standard across for the entire city so that we all have the same look as far as planning.
Are those requests all District 1?
I can't answer that without looking.
Can we
at
do all the
list.
district? Can we do the whole city and just divide it up into districts?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. That sounds even better.
Absolutely.
Can we still move forward with the title transfers for anyone who wants to, who is on your desk
That's a question for this body to consider, and there's going to be variations of that and so let me get with the city attorney on that too, because a lot of these properties, some may be titled to the CRA, where the CRA would need to be the authority that would give that asset away. Some are going to be titled to the city, which the city commission would need to be the authority to give that title away. And actually, Commissioner Reisman, when the conversation came up today, I actually asked IT and housing to put together the list of the entire city. So we'll get you an inventory list of all the properties the city owns with the districts and if they're available for other development. And I'll get you a list of the requests that are sitting on my desk to transfer title.
Because I would like to make an amendment to her motion, if possible.
Well, that's Commissioner Berry's motion to accept an amendment or not to. I don't know if there was a second for.
We didn't get a second yet on them. We've kind of been talking about it, but.
Can you repeat your motion, Commissioner?
I'd like to make a motion that we put a moratorium, may I say, to hold on all of the city properties for transferring until we are further understanding where they are and what we're doing for District 1, for all the Leesburg.
Commissioner Bear, if I can add, it's
Sure.
transfer of title.
Transfer of title, excuse me.
Land title,
Yeah,
just so we don't get that confused
I'm
with
sorry. A
financial
moratorium of
transfers.
any transfer of titles of properties that the city owns.
I'll second that.
And I would like to make an amendment to that. We can have the list, but not to inhibit the transfer of title.
As a commissioner coming on board, I just think I need to have some time to know what's going on before I get information on an agenda. Okay. And that's all I'm asking.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. We have a motion to amend that lacks a second at this point. We need, before we can discuss it at all, is there a second for that motion?
So now you're back to the original motion.
So we're back to the original motion, which is to hold all the titles transfers until this body meets again with the information.
Can I buddy up with one comment?
Sure.
What about if we conveyed one at fair market value? I mean, I hate to prohibit that. I don't think you may say there's none on your table, but if we have
There's none on the table for that.
Okay.
Because most of these are just
Donations?
requests or donations.
Okay,
so
I'm
that's
fine.
not fair market value.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So, public comment. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Just a real quick comment because I think my church is an affordable housing builder, and we're doing our best to build homes in Carver Heights as well as the CDC of Leesburg. And I think I made a request to Al probably 3 weeks ago, Al, after I think Ms. Wilson came to the city November last year and designating some city properties for affordable housing building. That was our tenor for our request. To ask the city to donate, I think, 2 or 3 lots in the Carver Heights area to build affordable housing. So I do say to Ms. Berry, I do agree she needs time to look at that, but I hope that we don't wait a long time to make that decision, or this body gets back together to consider the requests of those nonprofits. And this is a great market to build in, a great market to buy a home in. So as someone who's been in this community for a long time, I think people want the relish opportunity to be a first-time home buyer. So hope that, we maybe can put a time when you're going to meet back again to discuss it, so that this doesn't, linger into 6-7 months. So not that I disagree with Ms. Berry needing to know the list of what's out there, what's available, but I just hope that we don't wait 6-7 months to come back and make a decision. Thank you.
We can probably, I should be able to have the list by the 10th, so we can put that on the agenda as a discussion item.
There we go.
Are you agreeable with that?
I just want to have time to review it and have some understanding, and definitely be able to come up with a
So
comprehensive
we could talk
plan.
about it on the 10th.
Yes.
So we'll get the list to her, to everyone before the 10th. We're good?
No, I just mixed up my CRAs. The 10th is the downtown meeting, the downtown CRA meeting. So we'll get an agenda short. We'll probably need to go to the 4th meeting in April. That's a tick longer, but I think that's reasonable. That
It'd be the 24th.
so we'll shoot to, yeah, because those discussion items obviously your 30-minute time frame. So we'll shoot for the 24th.
Gotcha.
For the housing list.
That'll give everyone a chance to review it also. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor with a second. Any more public discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Reisman,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Barry,
Yes.
Commissioner Jasper,
No.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Chairperson Burry.
Yes. All right. Motion, let's see. Well, actually, we're doing roll call then, right? So we're still in the
Yes,
middle of
sir.
roll
We're
call.
still in the middle. Yeah. So we go to Commissioner Peterson.
Just going off of John Christian's comment, who owns this property on McCormick? Is this city
That's the
owned?
cities.
I'm-
It's either,
Looks like
I have to answer it, it's either the cities or the Carver Heights CRA. Is it the CRA? It's the CRA, so the Carver Heights CRA.
I was
This
just being
body owns
respectful
it.
to Pastor Christian, John Christian, on demolishing it. I mean, I look at it, I see it boarded up. If we're not going to take it to a food bank, which I don't think that's going anywhere, can we demolish it?
We can get that demolished pretty inexpensively, and it would probably be a removal of blight that everybody would agree to remove.
I just heard John bring that up, so I'm just trying to be respectful. Okay.
If everybody's okay with that, yeah, that's probably going to be something that's going to fall within my spending authority, so I'll just endeavor to have it demolished.
That's fine.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Reisman,
Nothing this evening.
Commissioner Connell,
Nothing.
Commissioner Jasper.
I was going to echo the sentiments of Commissioner Peterson. That was on my roll call list if we did not get approved tonight to go ahead and just demolish the building. So thank you.
Good deal. Nothing from me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chairperson Burry. Sorry.
That's okay. Nothing tonight. Can we get a motion to adjourn? Second.
Second.
We'll take about 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll get going.
Sorry. Water conservation. Two. Yes, sir. Let me go see if I can find it.
I saw that, now I get it. Now I get it.
That picture was in the agenda.
Yeah. I guess I knew any better and looked at it. Now I understand.
Here we go.
Yes, sir.
All right. This is City Commission meeting, Monday, March 27th, 2023. It is now 5:54. Call the meeting to order. We had an invocation earlier at our CRA meeting, along with the pledge. We'll move on to item 2, proclamations. It's Water Conservation Month. Whereas water is a basic and essential need in every living creature, and whereas the state of Florida, water management districts, and local governments are working together to increase awareness about the importance of water conservation, and whereas the city of Leesburg and the state of Florida have once again designated April, typically a dry month when water demands are most acute, as Florida's Water Conservation Month, to educate citizens about how they can help safeguard Florida's precious water resources. And whereas the city of Leesburg encourages and supports water conservation through a variety of educational programs and special events, and whereas every business, industry, school, and citizen can make positive contributions to decrease water use and protect Florida's resources, thus promoting a healthy environment, economy, and community. Whereas leak prevention is commonly thought to be the first step in conserving water, and the city of Leesburg encourages citizens and businesses to focus on repairing leaks and resolving all forms of water loss. And whereas 2023 marks the 25th anniversary of Water Conservation Month in Florida, and its important message about the significance of clean, safe, reliable, and sustainable supply of water. Now, therefore, I, James A. Burry, Jr., Mayor of the City of Leesburg, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2023 as Water Conservation Month, and call upon all members of our community to help preserve the precious resource by practicing water-saving measures and becoming more aware of the need to save water. Do we give this to? We got somebody in the public works now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Cliff.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, we'll move on to item 3, presentations. If we could have our CARF review by MSL.
Yeah, Joel, do you need an introduction? Or
I can introduce myself. Is this on? Or?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, great. Great. Well, good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. Pleasure to be here. My name is Joel Knopp, and I'm an audit shareholder with MSL CPAs, and we're here to present some of the highlights in a very brief fashion of the annual comprehensive financial report for the City of Leesburg, and this is for the fiscal year ended September 30, 2022. There's a letter in the agenda that references our required communications. The main thing I want to point out on these communications is that we got full cooperation from management. There were no significant findings that we had to report in the audit, and the audit went as planned. So we really appreciate the city staff and their cooperation in helping us complete the audit. If you want to move, yes, to this first slide, I did want to highlight where you'll find our reports. You'll find our report on the financial statements at the front of the document, and it's a large document, almost a little over 300 pages. So it is helpful, I think, to identify the key elements there. But pages 14 through 16 are the report on the financial statements, and it's an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion that the statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The remaining reports you'll find towards the back, the first one being the report on internal controls over financial reporting and compliance. And pleased to report there were no internal control findings or compliance matters that we had to include in our reports. Another compliance report relates to the city's management of its federal grants and state grants. There were two major grants that we had to test, one being the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds grant, of which the city received approximately $11 million. About $1.6 million of that was spent during fiscal year 22, so we tested the compliance with that grant, and there were no compliance findings there. On the state side, it was the aviation development grants, and that was those were also clean reports there. And then there's a couple reports required by the Auditor General, one called the management letter, one called the independent accounts report, which references the city's compliance with its investment policies, and those were also clean reports. Just a few financial highlights to point you towards. Actually, if you want to go to the next one, I'll focus on the general fund. That's really the key operating fund of the city. And I want to point you specifically to the fund balance levels, and unassigned is really the discretionary dollars that the city had at the end of the fiscal year, which was $12.1 million at the end of the fiscal year, and that was an improvement over 21, which was at $10.9 million. The unassigned fund balance as a percentage of total expenditures was 39.8%, which was also an improvement from 21, and that's a very healthy percentage for government, so a good position there at the end of the year. And then I want to also point you to the budget, because this is also a key compliance metric for the city. The city actually received $200,000 more than they projected and spent $2.8 million less than budgeted for the year, so a positive $3 million variance related to budget, and a positive $800,000 as it relates to an increase in fund balance for fiscal year 22. So good operating results. Business type activities also were positive, and it's in the operating income, from operating income perspective. So really a healthy position for the city, and specifically the clean audit, I think, is most important, in that there were no findings, which points to really the controls that the city sets up to follow, and the procedures they follow throughout the year, and being accountable, making sure that all those rules are followed and there's no issues when it comes time for us to audit. So we really appreciate Jim and his staff and the help we got in completing the audit, and a job well done there. So any questions, I'd be glad to answer them, but those were my prepared remarks.
No, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
Thank you.
This time we'll move on to public comments. This section is reserved for members of the public to bring up matters of concern. or opportunities for praise. Issue brought up will not be discussed in detail at this meeting. Issues will either be referred to the proper staff or will be scheduled for consideration at a future City Commission meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Would you please give your name and your address?
Good evening. For the record, Michael Rankin, 9013 Silver Lake Drive, Leesburg, Florida. Also the managing partner for LPG LLC. 2 weeks ago, this body gave myself and Mr. Cantrell and Barry Mansfield a 60-day opportunity to sharpen the pencil on Lee School. We are in the process of doing that. We heard loud and clear the desires from this body, as well as Mr. Minner and the planning department. So we are working towards a plan that we would like to bring to you in the next couple of weeks, getting ever so close to what we heard 2 weeks ago. I told Barry I would be here tonight to give you an update. It's been 2 weeks. I don't want to be the one to stand in front of you 55 days from now and say, I don't know what we're doing. I'd rather you know we're trying to move forward. We've listened. We're working on it. We're doing our best to keep the city manager apprised of the direction we think we're going in, and then we will be prepared to come to this body as quickly as possible. I believe in 2 weeks I'll be able to come back with a little bit more of an update so you know what's going on, in hopes of perhaps a month out from tonight to be have the final plan proposed to you. So it'll be ahead of the 60 days that, again, you graciously granted us in this project. So I just wanted to say thank you for the extension, and we're doing what we can to bring the project back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other public comment? Okay. Move on to item 5, the consent agenda. Routine items are placed on the consent agenda to expedite the meeting. If the commission or staff wish to discuss any item, the procedure is as follows. Pull the item or items from the consent agenda. Vote on remaining items with one roll call vote. Discuss each pulled item and vote by roll call. Are there any items anyone would like to pull?
C5.
5C5. Any other items? Do we need a motion to approve the rest of them? Yeah, can we get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve remaining items on consent agenda.
Second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Okay, would someone please introduce Resolution 5C5?
Introduced and asked to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, repealing Resolution Number 11,284, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement to accept a TDC grant between Lake County, Florida, and the City of Leesburg, and providing an effective date.
Motion for approval.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, and this is going to lead into your item at the end of the meeting. My understanding is that this TDC grant with the county, they want to tie it to a joint GPA. And I just do not think we should get our arm twisted and possibly compromise our future growth to satisfy the county over a grant for $1 million for the Susan Street. I just don't think it's in the city's best interest to do this. I think what I would recommend is that we temporarily table moving forward with Susan Street until we find the additional money. But I do not think we should let the county do this to us and compromise our future growth over this.
Okay, so to answer a little bit of your question, we did have a meeting that we were going to talk about later on, but this does have a little bit to do with it. We actually had a couple of meetings. We requested one meeting with Kirby to specifically address 1171, House Bill 1171, which we'll talk about that later too. At that meeting, there was no mention of TDC. The second meeting was requested by Commissioner Parks. Al and I went, and from that commissioner, he did not indicate that that was a board decision in any way, but he did indicate that for him, our participation or lack of participation in discussing JPA agreements would coincide with him not supporting the TDC grant. Is that the message you got from that meeting, Al?
Yes.
Okay. So, and we'll discuss that later on. Just to be clear, though, I did not get the opinion that that is a opinion of the whole board, which all five will get to, but that is just Commissioner Parks' opinion.
Well, I don't want to take the chance that we approve this and then with the condition that we have to join this JPA with them. I'd rather not take the money than to do that to the city.
Well, I think what we are actually approving by approving this is not the JPA.
But it's still, they didn't, my understanding.
And we'll talk about that, the JPA whole part later.
But they didn't accept our recommendation of what they want to still tie it to the hotel rates that we modified at the last meeting, and they rejected that. They said they're just really not playing ball with us at all.
If I can just, for clarity for the body, the two issues seem to be tied, and yet they're separate. I do think some of the Board of County Commissioners is concerned about where the city's at with respect to the JPA's joint planning agreements for those in the audience moving forward. And Mayor Burry specifically asked that this body talk about that. And I think that at the end of the meeting, it's important that this body have a good discussion on that, so don't get too tired before we get to the mayor's comments, because this body has changed a little bit in the past year with the election of Commissioner Berry and Commissioner Reisman. So it's important that this body publicly discuss those JPAs to give me clear direction so that the county knows that when I speak, it's on behalf of this body. Having said that, the TDC money, at least from one commissioner's comments with the mayor and myself, does come into play. I'm not sure that comes into play specifically. Putting that comment aside, specifically the TDC, when we approved this agreement last meeting, specifically had argument with their fiduciary responsibility of how to spend TDC money. TDC money, as you know, is derived from the heads and bed tax that you pay when you visit a hotel. It goes to the state, and then it comes back to the county that those hotels are located in. For Leesburg, we have probably about 30 to 40% of the TDC revenue generated in our community, so that's an impact on our general fund, and I think that's important. The TDC dollars are generated roughly, if you calculate an average night stay in Lake County of around $85 a night, times the number of rooms that's in Lake County, 2,800 or so, times 365 days a year is the formula. You come up with a number of around $3 million. It happens to be that the revenue of the TDC in Lake County is somewhere between $2.8 to $3.2 million. So arguably, you can argue that the room nights in Lake County are peaked out because they're generating about the maximum revenue that this county can generate considering the number of rooms that are in Lake County. The TDC committee appointed by the BOCC, Board of County Commissioners, has a concern. There's two ways to spend that money. That is, do you want to spend money on capital projects, which is allowable, or do you want to spend money advertising for events, which then brings in heads and beds, per se. So the county now really has grappled with that issue for some time. I would say at least the last 5 years. And they even had a moratorium on some monies for a while. I think it was probably more due to COVID than this argument. But there is an internal argument there at the county on this. That argument has ended in the last several grant applications for the city, several being a few, with a crawlback provision. When we got the $600,000 for the boardwalk along Ski Beach, this argument came up, and at that time the BOCC didn't take the recommendation and didn't put a crawlback provision in it. But now, obviously, the $1 million request for Susan Street is another capital project. The discussion came up, and now the BOCC seems to be listening a little bit more to the recommendation from the TDC, which is to have a crawlback provision. So back in October, when we represented, it was myself, Travis Rima was there, Commissioner Reisman was there in his pre-election mode. Listen to the arguments, and the argument was, at least Leesburg's argument was, we certainly understand the fiduciary responsibility of the TDC, recommending that to the BOCC, wanting tax dollars to be spent wisely. Our recommendation, however, was, okay, let's have a crawlback provision because that's part of an elected official's fiduciary responsibility. We respect and understand that. But if we tie it to the heads and bed tax as an escalator, no project in Lake County, period, whether it's a Leesburg project or a county project or any other municipal corporation on Lake, is going to see that number, see the revenue rise because the rooms are capped. So we didn't come up with a model of how to measure that. But the recommendation from the TDC went to the BOCC that said, before the money's issued, we need to come up with a model. That's paragraph 6 of this agreement. That's the big point of discussion, is that model. The county wants to do this in 2 steps. They want to approve the agreement, which has the crawlback provision in it, and basically it's paragraph 6. It's called, I think it's called Performance Measures and Reimbursement. And that provision says that Lake and Lee will further discuss how to come up with that principle. The agreement before you that you approved at the last meeting had a couple of minor revisions in the agreement, but it also had Schedule A, which was Leesburg's proposal on how to measure the crawlback provision. Since your direction to me was to approve the agreement and to make Schedule A agreement form so that those 2 documents then could be returned to the county and they would execute it. They had issue with that directive because the original agreement was slightly modified by the city. So I essentially put the wrong agreement before you. And the county respectfully requested that their agreement as written be considered by this body. So what's before you now is that agreement. It's pretty much the same. So before you is that agreement, which I recommend that you approved. And with that, we'll transmit our draft of Schedule A. And basically, Schedule A looks exactly the same as you saw it, except it has the title header of an agreement of the city of Leesburg and Lake County, yada, yada, yada. Grant reviewed it and agreed that it was in substantially the same form as Exhibit A. So I'm asking that you approve the agreement as written. Commissioner Connell's concerns about a quid pro quo with the county, I think, are certainly reasonable ones. I think also the concern of moving forward with a multi-million-dollar project isn't a reasonable one, but the majority of the commission has voted on this a few times, stating that Susan Street is a marquee project that you've made a priority. So I would again recommend that you move forward with that. Missing $1 million if we don't get that from the grant is certainly a kink in the project's funding. If that does happen, I think we have some time to continue to move on with design, continue to move on with the planning. I'm hopeful that probably by summertime we have the TDC crawback provision ironed out and approved by both bodies. The reason for the two-step, I think, from the county, I would assume, is because they want the TDC's opinion on it. So they want to submit that draft to the TDC, get their comments, and then have the BOC deliberated on. Pretty much similar to some of the things that this body does when you seek your advisory board's opinion. So I would speculate that that's a reasonable request. Should at the end of the day we not get the grant, then we'll be in a position where we would need to find funding, and I would point to your healthy reserve levels, which we just reviewed, your other grant funds, your DST monies in the future. So it's certainly a hole in the bucket. I certainly don't want to brag about our financial position while we're asking the county for $1 million, but also would indicate that your improvement is a county-wide improvement that the county will benefit from, businesses will benefit from. That will have a somewhat of an impact on TDC dollars, although determining that is difficult because there's a regional impact. And I think one of the big important things that we tried to stress with this project of the Susan Street project to the TDC board is that the project it really focuses on bringing people to Lake County and the region in downtimes, which is the summertime. So, it's easy to get, there's lots of heads and beds and, from Labor Day to about Easter, right? September to April, lots of people come to Lake County for various reasons, and then it does fall off in the summertime. So our goal would be part of that goal is to get people here in the summertime. So I would encourage you to improve it. We'll work as quickly and expeditiously as we can to iron out part 2. I know I'm asking you to enter into an agreement that's a little open-ended, but I think that because of the magnitude of this project, it's something you still want to do. I didn't mean to be long-winded, but
No,
that's
fine.
That's the whole. It's an issue with lots of layers.
I mean, I just think we should have an understanding with the county of what we're willing to agree to before we even make a motion to agree to it. What are the parameters set and what's up for tonight for vote on our performance measures to satisfy the grant requirements?
The performance measures that we submitted to the county for their review concern number of events that would be conducted at the facility once the facility is fully constructed and operational. We lay out 4 layers of events called hallmark, local, regional, and then summer events, and we define what each one is. And then we say, and we award each a point value to those type of events. And then based on a point summary at the end of a 5-year period would be the ratio of how we pay back. If we get, I think it was 88 to 100%, we pay back 0, and then we claw it back all the way to where we would pay back the full amount. And then at the end of the 5-year period, once we met that initial measuring stick, that parameter of a crawback provision has been met. It's no longer, it's null and void, and we move forward in perpetuity.
But I mean, is that what was proposed to the county and they rejected it already?
No, I don't believe the county read the provision that we submitted. So,
well, what did they kick back then?
They asked us to review the TDC grant agreement. And they asked that we do the grant agreement first and then do the supplemental agreement pursuant to paragraph 6 second. So before you is the TDC agreement. You're awarded $1 million, and paragraph 6 in the future, we're gonna mutually agree by agreement on how to do a crawback provision.
Are those agreements going to be agreed upon prior to us receiving the money?
No, sir. Again, the provision for the crawback is done subsequent to the agreement on accepting the TDC dollars.
I mean, I don't think we should take anything until we get an agreement on what we're going to, what's workable and what's not to us. Because we take their money and then we find out we can't, come to terms with them.
Well,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Just one information. So currently, the county would like to see heads and beds as the marker for how successful we are.
I'm not going
to. What's their side Because we're not wanting to do heads and beds because the heads and beds are already
I think,
maxed out.
in all fairness to the BOCC, I don't think has really talked about what they want to see as far as a crawback provision. I think by them asking us to do the agreement in this fashion, the BOCC seriously wants to consider a crawback provision. So the argument right now is more at the TDC advisory board level. And I think there's 9 people on that board. And frankly, the opinions on that board as far as a crawback provision greatly are frankly all over the place. And I think it's important to understand the composition of that board too. For example, I think there's 3 hoteliers that are appointed by the BOCC, the largest city in Lake, another city, and so two lake cities, one of which is the large city. There's the BOCC rep, and I think there's a couple other. So I would really say that the main discrepancy of a crawback provision is coming from a small minority, the hotelers on the TDC advisory board more than anybody else. And I think there's some open opinion on the TDC board about how to measure that performance. And I think that the BOCC wants to iron this out, and there's been trepidation, I think, at the county level on these capital improvement TDC requests for some time. So frankly, lately Leesburg has been one of the more aggressive ones asking for TDC money. So we're kind of the guinea pig, if you will. Frankly, again, if this body was giving those type of monies out, you would want that fiduciary responsibility. So I think it's a reasonable ask as long as we get it defined right. The other provision, if I can assuage the commissioner's concerns about accepting a grant and then not getting this part of the paragraph 6 fixed, it's that the grant money is given in increments. So it's not like we're going to get $1 million, go spend it, and then be stuck. And I think there's the time frame too, to where I think we need to move forward with design and get this going. And I think by the time we find out that A, this works, then it's no prob, and B, if it doesn't work out, then we got to put our hat back on. But the biggest issue is, if we don't get the TDC money, we'll need to find $1 million. My guess is that we'll either limit the project, right? So we'll cut off a couple of fields to get it in budget. But I think what we've encumbered right now is the $500,000 for design. We really need to get that moving forward. We need to get that bid out. And then if we don't have the money, then my guess is we'll just whittle back, instead of 5 fields, we do 3 fields. There's something like that. So like I say, I understand commissioners' concerns, but I do think this body thinks that this is an important project, and I think there's ways to mitigate the financial gaps that could potentially come up.
Now, we approved design in the last meeting, right?
You approved the design contract.
Yes, okay. I'll be sure. Okay. I'll be quiet. I was on the TDC board for 2 years, and I don't think I ever bought into the bed count, so that does trouble me a little bit. I just never. I've had a couple of people explain it to me. I don't buy into it. I don't think it's accurate. That's just my opinion. So it does scare me. But my last question is, we can always reject this later, right? We can approve this tonight, and county goes sideways on us. We just reject it.
Yes.
Okay.
You can always say, hey, we give notice that we terminate the TDC grant agreement if we can't figure out the parameters in paragraph 6.
Do you have a time frame, Al, on how long it would take to find out exactly what the county's going to?
Yeah, Commissioner, not to be sarcastic, but we have our concept on their desk. So my guess is they'll turn around in April and have that discussion with the TDC advisory board. Do they meet in April, Travis? April 11th, and then probably look for May for it to go before BOCC discussion. So May, June.
And in the meantime, would the city be awarded this money? or a portion of it? Or?
Yeah, the BOCC, I talked with the county manager, Jennifer Barker. The BOCC is scheduled to have this on their agenda. They meet the second Tuesday of the month. So
we can reject it, Commissioner Cannell. We can reject it anytime
it'll be
we
on
want.
the April 11th BOCC board meeting.
I mean, I respect your opinion. If we don't like it down the road, we just reject it.
Yeah,
We're not binding ourselves
money.
tonight.
Is there interest tied on the payback to this money?
No.
I just think, I don't know. To me, it doesn't sound like a good business deal. I think you get everything taken care of up front before you agree to sign and go along with anything.
Well, it's bad timing for us. I think, just unfortunate timing. The TDC board's been talking about this clawback provision for a while, and now all of a sudden, our project comes forward, and it starts drawing more scrutiny. I was on the TDC board at the time. I said, that's fine if you're going to do it with us. Just be sure you do it with everybody. And they said yes. But I am intrigued. I did not know this. I did not know that we generate 30 to 40% of the hotel rooms. So it kind of frustrates me a little bit.
Yeah, we used to generate
how we're treated.
Probably closer to half, maybe a little over half of that before they started counting the B&B tax monies.
Okay, I'll stop right there. Thank you.
Any other comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
No.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Let's move on to public hearings and non-routine items. We have some second readings of ordinances. Would someone please introduce 6A 1, 2, and 3, please?
I'll introduce 6A 1, 2, and 3 to be read by title only.
6A1, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, annexing certain real property consisting of approximately 109.63 plus minus acres, being generally located east of U.S. Highway 27 and south of Florida's Turnpike, lying in Sections 7 and 8, Township 21 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, providing that said property so annexed shall be liable for its proportionate share of the existing and future indebtedness of said city, providing that such annexed property shall be subject to all laws and ordinances of said city, as if all such territory had been a part of the City of Leesburg at the time of passage and approval of said laws and ordinances, providing that such annexed territory shall be placed in City Commission District 3 and providing an effective date. 6A2, an ordinance amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan of the City of Leesburg, changing the future land use map designation of certain property containing 109.63 plus minus acres from Lake County Regional Office to City of Leesburg Neighborhood Mixed Use for a property generally located east of U.S. Highway 27 and south of Florida's Turnpike, lying in Sections 7 and 8, Township 21 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date. 6A3, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 109.63 plus minus acres from Lake County A Agriculture to City of Leesburg PUD Planned Unit Development to allow for mixed-use development for a property generally located east of U.S. Highway 27 and south of Florida's Turnpike, lying in Sections 7 and 8, Township 21 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Seeing how items 2 and 3 are quasi-judicial, will Grant work your magic?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. If everyone in the audience here, if anyone's planning to present any testimony or evidence on either any of the public hearing items we have, that would be 6A2, Blue Cedar, 6A3, Blue Cedar rezoning, 6A4, Whispering Hills CDD, 6A5, Sleepy Hollow Storage rezoning, 6A7, Hudson Furniture rezoning, and 6A8, Wildwood Utility Dependent District. If anyone's here for any of those items, if you would please stand and raise your right hand so you can be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm that all testimony you'll give tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you.
Dan, what you got for us?
Good evening, Commission. Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning. This is second reading for the Blue Cedar project. This is an annexation, large-scale comp plan, and plan unit development. Zoning, as you can see on the map, the property is on the east side of US 27, south of the Turnpike. Consists of approximately 110 acres. There'll be an annexation, then a future land use that's going from Lake County Regional Office to City of Leesburg Neighborhood Mixed Use, and then after that is zoning, which would be Lake County Agriculture to City of Leesburg Plan Unit Development. Again, the project is proposed for a mixed-use development on 110 acres. That would consist of 315 single-family units broken down into a density of 2.8 gross units per gross acre. That'd be 118 townhomes on 22 by 110 lots, 141 single families on 50 by 110s, and 48 single families on 55 by 110s. There's a maximum, in addition to that, on the west side of the property, a maximum of 300,000 square feet of commercial uses to include retail, office, restaurants, daycare, schools, medical. We put a good mix in there because it's along the highway and immediately south of the Lake Medical Pavilion. We've also got in the standard list of prohibited uses, the tattoo parlors, the check cashing, thrift stores, and that kind of thing. Again, there are design and architectural standards for all of the uses in here, including the dark sky lighting, fencing requirements that include a berm or a fence on Blue Cedar Road on the northern boundary, I believe it is, and then an 8-foot wall on the east side to separate the commercial property from the residential. Landscape and buffers, including the standard 35% open space, along with irrigation and water controls for our Florida-friendly water landscape requirements. Under recreation, development of this size creates 2.3 to 2.4 acres of recreation, 2.36 to be exact, recreation. There are two separate areas. There are timing requirements for the installation so that the first recreational area will be done no later than 50% of the residential being done, and the second one at 80%. We have tonight Ms. Carolyn Haslam of the Ackerman Law Firm, together with a whole team, and they're here if you'd like to see their presentation or whatever you would like to do. So, ready to answer any questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. We'll hear from the petitioner.
Awesome. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Carolyn Haslam with the Ackerman Law Firm. My address for the record is 420 South Orange Avenue, Suite 1200 in Orlando. As staff noted, we are here for our second reading for annexation, comprehensive plan, and zoning amendment. And my presentation will just give a little bit of an overview of what we are proposing. The annexation, not only, there are two parcels, not only do they meet the Florida statutory requirements, but we're also specifically included within the interlocal services boundary agreement. The two parcels are within the exhibit showing parcels that can be annexed by the city. For our future land use amendment, we are proposing a neighborhood mixed use, which we believe is consistent and compatible with the adjacent areas, particularly the hospital and the commercial that exists within the city future land uses to the north. The neighborhood mixed use does allow for up to 4 dwelling units per acre for residential uses. You can see here our project is, as you noted, it is east of 27 and south of the Turnpike. We are proposing the 118 townhomes and 189 single-family units, a maximum of 315 units for a gross density of 2.8 dwelling units, which is well under the 4 units per acre allowed. The 10-acre site is proposing approximately a maximum of 300,000 square feet of office, commercial, and institutional uses. We are proposing a PD rezoning. I'm not advancing the slides as much as I should. Sorry. You can see in the area, in addition to the existing future land use that is Lake County Ag, the areas that have been developed have moved to a commercial designation in the area. And our permitted uses that we are proposing. So for the residential, we're pretty much sticking to single family and detached and attached, which is the townhomes, accessory uses, and model homes. For commercial, we are looking to include uses that are complementary to the hospital, so major medical facilities, medical office, and other office uses. Of course, you would expect to see things like general and highway retail along US 27. It's an area that is very much adjacent to the turnpike, and we expect to see a lot of retail and highway type uses up there. So the prohibited uses, as he mentioned, not only the typical standard ones, but we also included the residential uses that we're not proposing in there, including the multifamily and duplexes. This is a conceptual site plan that was included within our application and is attached to the ordinance. You can see that we have preserved the wetlands, which are adjacent to the water bodies. The yellow units are our largest units, which are the 55-foot wide single families, where they really get to take advantage of those beautiful views over the water. We work a little bit further to the west, and we've got the smaller units in the townhomes, and of course the commercial is fronting 27. So at the time, we were proposing 118 townhomes and 141 of the 50-foot lots and 48 of the 55s. But we put in a provision in the PD that allows us a little bit of flexibility so that when we're going in for design stage, which we're ready to do, if the unit mix changes within 10% of either of those or any of those numbers, as long as we don't exceed the 315 units, we can make those changes without having to go back and getting an amendment. This is just an overview of what the lot development standards are for those units. You can get an idea. And again, for commercial. The project has the standard open space and landscaping stuff that was previously mentioned, and we have some architectural standards that include dormers and gables. You have to choose 5 for each home. This is the proposed product for our facade. These are the single-family units that we're proposing, and this is what the townhomes look like. So just a brief recap, we have a staff recommendation for approval. We went to Planning Commission back in December, received a unanimous recommendation for approval. After our first reading, the the comprehensive plan went up to the state. We received a few informational comments and got the letter of no comment back and are here for our second reading. We have actually, and this is the only time this has ever happened to me in my entire career so far, have only positive feedback on the project received, which is amazing. We're really happy about that. And so we believe that our project is a good one. It's not only is it within what should be annexed into the city, but it's consistent with the area, compatible with your code and your comprehensive plan, and we ask for your consideration in approving the 3 ordinances this evening. My client and his consultant are here tonight in order to answer any questions if you have any about the project.
Any questions for the petitioner? Did you have, you had 2 exits onto 27? Is that what you're planning?
Yes.
There was
2 exits. There's one on 27 and one on Blue.
Ties up to the hospital also?
Yes.
But that's not on your property, or there's something?
Yeah, it's currently, the property is currently owned by the hospital, but it's being deeded because it was supposed to be publicly, it was supposed to be dedicated public
there was
right away,
something,
but it just hadn't been done yet. It was kind of a...
Okay, so you will have access to that. So
Correct.
2 accesses.
Yes.
And then a major access.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Public comment?
Thank you for your time.
No public comment?
Can I ask Dan a question?
Sure.
Dan, and I apologize for not getting you earlier.
That's okay.
Can our PUDs restrict the gambling or the try your luck casino in the area?
We can add that in. That's not a problem. We do it. We sometimes have that in our PUDs. There's actually a code under ordinance, I forget, it's done in 2014, that puts a number of conditions on those types of uses to include full-time security, bulletproof glass, safe, a safe on site, active cash management policy, $50,000 cash bond, on and on and on. But if you'd like to have that in there, we can certainly add it. They're talking about the.
Oh, and I'm not saying you guys are, but moving forward, if
we can do that.
yeah. I would like to add it, but if the commission would be in favor of that, I would like to see all PUDs going forward have that language in there.
Not this one, or do you want to add it to this one?
I would like to add it.
Add this one.
Yeah.
Got it.
Good with that.
And then going forward,
Right.
prohibit. There's some special language they get around to get them put in, if I'm not mistaken.
There's the Florida Gaming Commission has just recently closed that loophole, and they are all pretty much illegal again at this point. So it's going to get started addressed through local and county law enforcement.
Okay. I see them popping up all over Tavares. I have one
between us and Tavares right there.
There's a ton of them.
Internet cafes.
Yeah.
And
there's one that opened up
adult
across from my
gaming.
house not too long. It's been a little while, but just
Our ordinance is extremely restrictive and allows only a very few spots to do it, but we can add it in PUDs. It'd be fine.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? Any rebuttal from the petitioners or any other comments, guys? We'll have a roll call. Oh, actually, what we need is a motion to approve them.
I'll make
each individual.
I'll make a motion to 6A1, I believe it was.
Yes. Roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. We have a motion to approve 6A2.
A motion to approve 6A2.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Motion to approve 6A3.
A motion to approve 6A3 with my amendment with no gambling or try your luck facilities.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Will someone please introduce 6A4?
Introduced and asked to be read by title only.
Excuse me. An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, establishing the Bella Viva at Whispering Hills Community Development District pursuant to Chapter 190 Florida statutes, providing for authority and power of the district, providing for the Board of Supervisors of the district, providing for the district budget, providing for functions of the district, providing for miscellaneous provisions, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request to allow Community Development District on a portion of the Whispering Hills development, which you know is the one down there by across 27 from Plantation on the east side of 27. It's our largest proposed development to date, 2,942 units. CDDs are basically permitted under Chapter 190 of Florida statutes. They're a form of special purpose district. They're used for managing, financing, and delivering basic community development services. They are specific to a described area. They have no zoning, permitting, police powers, but they are used for financing, funding, constructing, operating water, wastewater systems, bridges, transit shelters, environmental conservation areas, and schools and security measures. So Mr. Wes Haber with the law firm of QTAC Rock in Tallahassee, I believe, is here to answer any questions if you have any. We do have CDDs currently in the city. Arlington Ridge was our first, and then we have one in Terra Oaks and several in the villages.
Anybody have any questions for the petitioner? All right. We'll have a roll call.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. All right. Someone please introduce 6A5.
Introduced and asked to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 15.8 plus minus acres from City of Leesburg PUD Planned Unit Development to City of Leesburg PUD Planned Unit Development to allow for mixed uses limited to light commercial and self-storage for property generally located east of U.S. Highway 441 and west of Sleepy Hollow Road, lying in Section 20, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Motion for approval.
Motion for approval.
Second.
Discussion? Do we have anything staff-wise you want to?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a property located south of U.S. Highway 441 west of Sleepy Hollow Road. As you can see on the maps, the vast majority of this property, which consists of approximately 17 acres, is wetlands. I want to say there's about 2.5 that are even usable. It's currently zoned under Ordinance 0953, which allowed a variety of uses, which are drawn up prior, which was put together back in 09 prior to the current boom that we're in. And under the current zoning proposal, what they'd be allowed is 10,000 square feet of commercial uses. The primarily anticipated use at this point is for self-storage units. That, in staff's opinion, is one of the few uses that could go out there. You could do a single-family house, but you're probably not going to get much on that road. So there's daycare or office and storage units. The property is a difficult one to put anything on. There is a standard list of tattoo parlor, check cashing stores. We can add the internet cafes if you like. But basically what we're looking for on that use was anything that would not be intensive or conflicting with the neighborhood that's growing out there, including where you see Bradford Ridge Drive to the north that's just been platted, and all of the other, down there at Spring Breeze Lane, all the other residential that's going out there. We're just trying to find something that's consistent and not too intense. Standard PUD conditions otherwise. Thank you.
Any comments from the petitioner? Any public comment? Any deliberation? Any comments from anyone? Roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Cunnell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Okay, would someone please introduce 6A, 6, and 7?
I'll introduce 6A, 6, and 7 to be read by title only.
6A6, an ordinance amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan of the City of Leesburg, changing the future land use map designation of certain property containing 22 plus minus acres from City of Leesburg Industrial and Conservation to City of Leesburg General Commercial and Conservation for property generally located east of Executive Boulevard and north of West Main Street, lying in Section 29, Township 19 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date. 6A7, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 22 plus minus acres from City of Leesburg M1 Industrial to City of Leesburg PUD Planned Unit Development for property generally located east of Executive Boulevard and north of West Main Street, lying in Section 29, Township 19 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Motion to approve these.
So moved.
Second.
All righty. What you got for us, Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a good project. It's for Hudson's Furniture. It's for a small-scale comp plan amendment and a rezoning. The property is already within the city limits. As you can see, it's on the north side of County Road 44, i.e. West Main, and then just north of Progress Road. It is under contract with Hudson's Furniture, as stated earlier. We would change the request is to change the future land use designation from industrial and conservation over to PUD, Planned Unit Development. And then on the future land use, we're looking at changing from industrial and conservation to general commercial and conservation. Again, a large portion of this property is wetlands, so we're actively looking for uses that can utilize the land and save the conservation areas. This is about 22 acres, and as you may or may not be familiar, Hudson sells a good line of furniture. Leesburg does need that in our market, we think. It'd be about 54,000 square feet of commercial uses, which that puts, over an acre under roof. The uses would be the furniture store on the south side of the property, actually on the southwest side of the property. And then you probably can't see it from the road, but it would be more mini warehouses and storage back on the northwest corner. We have the dark sky lighting requirements, shielding of the lights, buffers, irrigation controls, and so forth. We did make one concession on the buffers because there's a power line easement that goes through there, and staff does normally work with the applicants when there's a power line easement to actively ensure that there are no trees being planted under those easements. So I have done a letter of intent to Mr. Mitch Collins, who is here. He is the engineer for Hudson's and the project manager on this site. So if you have any questions, he is here. Otherwise, staff and Planning Commission are recommending approval.
Okay. Would anybody like to hear from the petitioner on this? You're okay? Okay. Any public comment? All right. Any deliberation, any comments from you guys? We're okay? Roll call.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Was it 6A?
This is 6.
Yeah, we're going to do 6A6.
6 first and then 7 after that.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Now we'll move to a roll call on 6A7.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Someone please introduce 6A8.
Introduce 6A8 to be read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, amending City of Leesburg Ordinance 2021-37 to grant a non-exclusive, non-potable water irrigation utility franchise to the Wildwood Utility Dependent District, its successors and assigns, granting such franchise for a period of 40 years to construct, own, operate, and maintain certain services and facilities to serve areas within and adjacent to the village's age-restricted development, providing for conflict and severability, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion? No comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry?
Yes.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Okay, moving on to 6B1, there are no first reading of ordinances. 6C1, these are non-routine items. Would someone please introduce the resolution?
Introduce has to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, in opposition to the passage of Florida House Bill 1331, sponsored by Representative Facade Cabrera, and Senate Bill 1380, sponsored by Senator Martin, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion? Anybody have comments? Are you comfortable with the resolution? Everybody in? Do you want to, for the public, please, Al, maybe just a quick?
You sure? No, okay. House Bill 1331 and Senate Bill 1380. Those are bills that significantly affect how the city of Leesburg operates. They seek to limit our authority over our utility systems. They seek to limit the amount of financial transfers. They seek to demand elected utility authority authority boards. They seek to demand different ways how outside customers pay the water and sewer structure, and it also takes away the city's ability to provide surcharge to non-incorporated residents who are on the city system. All these things significantly impact how we operate. Our model is at stake. Lots of different theories on why this has happened, but the bottom line is essentially it's the continued assault from the investor-owned utilities on the way municipal electric utilities function. I think it's absolutely critical that this body pass this resolution, and earlier this evening you passed a resolution that hired a lobbyist for us, and this is an issue that we need to watch. It's extremely consequential and can have significant grave financial impacts on the city in perpetuity should it be passed.
Any comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry? Yes. Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Eastman?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. All right, so we're on to 7. Informational reports. We have a financial report as of January 2023. Any questions? There's none. No questions. We'll move on. City attorney items.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got one item this evening. My request is relating to the Sunnyside Lakeland Holdings and Sinesio Ventures action that's pending against the city right now. I believe everyone's aware that the special magistrate hearing has been scheduled for April 25th at 9 a.m. here in the Commission chambers at City Hall. So that's upcoming. Now, one thing that we've discussed in the past, and I know we have a couple of commissioners that have come on board since we've last brought this issue up, but Section 286.011 of the Florida statutes generally requires all of the commission meetings to be public and held out in the open. However, there is an exception to allow you to meet in a closed session with your attorney in certain circumstances identified under the statute. The purpose of my report tonight is I understand that a settlement proposal has been submitted from Sunnyside and Sinesio to the city. I also understand, my firm is conflicted out of this matter. However, I understand that your attorneys, Briones plus Briones, would like to have a closed session meeting with you to discuss the settlement proposal that has been submitted to the city. The request is to hold that closed session on April 10th after the normal agenda has concluded. Would that date work for everybody? Would everybody be agreeable to holding the meeting at that time?
It's good with me.
What's the date again? Sorry.
That date would be April 10th after the normal commission agenda.
Why don't you do it before?
Do it before?
No, you got a meeting. We can't do it before. Yeah.
CRA was before, right?
Yeah. I'll let Stephanie know.
So April 10th.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Is that good with everyone?
Fine with me.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. Now, as a reminder, the parties who are able to attend this meeting are limited to the city manager, the commissioners, the attorneys from Briones plus Briones, and a court reporter. Also, as a reminder, although this particular session will be a closed session, the entire meeting is on the record. So the court reporter will transcribe everything that's discussed at the meeting. That transcript will be filed and ultimately will be made public after the litigation has concluded. So that's all I've got for my report. Does anybody have any questions or anything? Yes, sir.
Yeah, the only thing I will, now that you've asked for the shade meeting, I will get out a copy of the settlement offer. I'll label it as it's exempt from the Sunshine Law, so please keep it to yourself.
All right. Any questions on that? Very good. All right. Thank you, everyone. That's all I've got for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Okay, any city manager items?
Just one item. I don't say that often. Keep information to yourself. So it always feels weird to say that. But hey, just on a quick note, I appreciate the commission's support on these legislative matters. In my almost 28, almost 30 years of city management, I think this legislative session has been the most busy for me. The last couple of weeks, I think I've done nothing but chase down bills from solid waste issues, which have been mitigated. That was a significant impact for the city, as it would have potentially kept us out of franchise rights on non-single family residential. There was an amendment on that excluded those haulers that do those municipal corporations that have their own personnel and equipment, and the word on that bill is that it'll die. There's a couple others about hiring CEOs and city managers and county managers and superintendents. That's not even worth talking about. 1171, the local bill from Lake on the RPAs, I understand, has died. I think the staff of the county up there has determined that bill was unconstitutional. So for procedural reasons, I think it's no longer a worry. But 1331 and 1380 are still on the table, so those are of concern, and we'll continue to watch those. So can't wait for May. Hopefully we go unscathed.
All righty. Roll call.
Commissioner Berry?
Do you have any comments? No comments, yeah.
I'm sorry. Commissioner Peterson?
Nothing.
Commissioner Eastman?
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Connell?
One thing. I think it was brought up about a month ago. I believe Commissioner beside me here brought it up on the possibility of having some discussion on some of this grant money that we give out through the Facade or the redevelopment, that we put some conditions on the property owners that we're giving this free money to. And I believe it was brought up that maybe we should have a discussion on that and put some type of restrictions, or at least have a discussion on what those might be. And I just want to bring that back up because I did speak to the city manager today about it, and he's been busy, as he said, with the legislation. So, but I would like to see that come up in some debate, or not debate, but some discussion.
So we could.
I'll get with Grant, and I don't know. That's specifically for the facade sign landscape grant, the home grant, and the downtown business the downtown historic building redevelopment grant. I think are the three issues. I can't. Whether we did a resolution or ordinance, I'll get with the city attorney and we'll get some modifications for the remaining of ownership. Would 2 5-year a period of time before they sell?
Well, like I said, that's just, I mean, I don't really have a number, Al. I just think it's worth some discussion on what, if we want to put the number on it, which, as everyone here knows, I do. But we could have that discussion if the commission feels like they are in agreement to put some type of conditions on these things. We could have a discussion on what time frame that should be. And then if they sell prior to that, a payback schedule, you know, I mean, 80% after the first year, you know, 60% after the second year if you sell it before you get to the 5-year period, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Yes. Some type of schedule.
At least we can discuss it and decide.
Yes.
And that way we don't have to.
Yes.
You know.
Absolutely. Yes. Go through this every time.
I have a question. Is this for all businesses or nonprofit businesses?
It's for anything. I would say it's for anything we give money to for redevelopment.
Okay. Okay. You're trying to apply it to everything, not just the downtown.
No, everything. I would say.
Okay, and where you and I have disagreed on this
and sign grants and everything else.
Yeah, where we've disagreed is, I agree with you when we give 100% of the money. That's different. Where I push back is like the downtown grants. I'll use the examples so far. We gave somebody $250. Help me out, Al. I think they put $750 into it. Another one they put $1 million into it. I told you I'd do that deal any day to improve downtown. I don't care if they sell the thing tomorrow. But now, when you talk about 100% of our money, I'll have a different tune on that. So I just like to separate the two a little bit. Well, we can talk about it. We've had votes on this.
I would like to have an open discussion about.
Okay, I think I know where the commission stands, but I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, so in general, I wanted to bring to the table talking a little bit about JPAs, which is something that the county has been very interesting in establishing with all the cities for several years now. For you guys that are maybe a little newer to the discussion, my involvement with this started back probably in, I want to say it was December, the end of December in 21. We had a joint meeting with the county commissioners and us down at the Venetian Center, and specifically the discussion was about Whispering Hills. Whispering Hills was coming to us. We were going to vote on it. We had a rather contentious meeting. That's how the paper described it, if you look it up in the Daily Commercial. But there was some banter back and forth that, you know, it wasn't an all-lovey meeting. So let's just leave it at that. We went ahead and annexed both Whispering Hills and Hodges. The next year in 22, there was a couple of meetings, I think, that Al and Mike may have gone to, as Mike was the mayor then, where these discussions were taking place. The county very interested in these joint planning agreements. And then we had a meeting after I became mayor earlier this year that Al and I went to. That was a future planning meeting with the county over at Tavares. And we were asked to give a 5-minute presentation. From the county, we heard joint planning, joint planning. So as this has moved along, we haven't done a whole lot with the joint planning. As a body, we haven't really come to discuss this. So I thought it was important that we go on record and talk a little bit about it. I can tell you that we requested a meeting in March the 9th with Kirby Smith. That was me. I say we because Al and I went. And we met with the chairman of the Board of County Commissioners, Kirby, and Jennifer, the county manager, to discuss at that time House Bill 1171, which was fresh on the agenda. That was, in our opinion, grossly illegal, but if it was enacted, it could have possible ramifications of saying that our annexed property, if the PUDs expired, that it would revert back to this rural protection area, which we don't even have a code for that. So that's why we never thought it would go anywhere, but it was very concerning to us because we felt like it was a direct attack on our ability to grow economically, okay? So we had that discussion with Kirby and Jennifer, and in those discussions, we felt like we got our point across, and in fact, we got a text later in the evening that had some new language that they were going to put in there that said these will last, you know, forever. If we have already issued a PUD on it, that those entitlements would be good forever. Now, my understanding is they finally figured out that the whole thing was not legal to begin with, and it's off the table. That's the information I have. So on March the 14th, we got a request from Commissioner Sean Parks to come and have a sit down with him, at which time we thought that we would be talking more about 1171 and its impact. But the meeting began to go towards JPAs and his desire to have these joint planning agreements with all the cities, and that Leesburg was not moving forward with that. And it was made abundantly clear to me that there was interest in his part that if we weren't going to play ball on the joint planning agreements, that he would vote to withhold the TDC funds. So that's where that, now, as I said before, when we were talking about it, that was his comment. That was not a comment from the board. So just to be clear on that. So, needless to say, our 2-hour, our 15-minute conversation turned into 2 hours. And it was not a good conversation. There was a little bit of anger on both your mayor and your city manager. We didn't like what he was saying, and we let him know that. And we got through the conversation, and the agreement that I came to with him was that, we will discuss joint planning agreements. This is us discussing that. I told him at the next city commission meeting that we will bring this up. So in bringing up that, I also told him that I felt like any joint planning agreement we are going to agree to will not compromise our ability to follow our ISB accords from 2013 and 2014. Those, in our opinion, basically gave us the right in our box, as Al likes to call it, that we can annex what we feel is appropriate. I do believe any JPA that we are going to agree to, it's almost like we're joining them and they get to decide. It's a joint agreement on any of these annexations. We have to get that approval. And that is not what the ISB does for us. I also point out that, I understand the county has a mission. The county's, what their mission statement's probably a lot different than our mission statement. But we work for the city of Leesburg, and we've got to look out for the city of Leesburg. And giving up those ISBA agreements would hinder our ability to grow, in my opinion. So, I made that clear at that meeting that is part of, that we need our ability to annex as we see appropriately. Now, what we can do and have done for the county is in the realm of services. And I'm going to let, Al can kind of talk to you about some of that stuff in these agreements we have with the county, especially our fire services, that, is an advantage to the county. It's not necessarily the biggest advantage to us, but we, in order to get what we're getting, so, long story short, I would like for us to discuss it a little bit tonight. We can put it off to another meeting where we, once we kind of have a direction from this body as to what you want to do. I will say, before I shut up, there was one other thing that Sean wanted us to consider along with the joint planning agreements, and that's what they referred to as the transfer of development rights, TDRs. And I would urge you all to go look it up because I wasn't real sure what all it was, but it basically kind of says if you've got Farmer Joe out there that's got 400 acres and he doesn't want to sell it for houses, he wants to keep it rural and keep it nice, but he needs money, he sells those development rights to a bank. And I'm not sure if they're just talking as figuratively, a bank. It's, just an entity. Then when a developer wants to develop in an area where he wants more density than what the current code allows, he can go to that bank and purchase those credits so that he can then put more houses, go up instead of going. I'm the messenger relaying what the county, and I think Al can, this is where it went. So I'll hand it over to Al to talk a little bit about the service end, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, I think the mayor summed it up pretty well, the meeting there. I think that, just to use some acronyms I'm going to throw out here for everybody: Land Development and Regulations, LDR, JPA, Joint Planning Agreement, ISBA, Inter-Service Boundary Agreement. Long and the short of it is, I think there was some frustration from Commissioner Parks and some of the other commissioners that exist, whereby in the JPA meetings that we've had, basically on a quarterly basis, maybe for the last 18 months, seems to be a real strong push from the BOCC that each and every municipal corporation and lake have a JPA with the county. The former commission here, again, because you guys changed in January, I don't want to keep going back and forth to that, but there's new faces on this body. So I think it's important that this body direct me on how you want to move forward in this regard. And at the JPA meetings, the sentiment has been expressed, and outside of the meetings, and unfortunately I think sometimes the commentary outside of the meetings has gotten more weight than inside the meetings. But the commentary outside the meetings from myself and maybe perhaps other commissioners and former commissioners has been, there ain't no way Leesburg's doing a JPA. Well, that's the interpretation of what's been said. What has been said publicly before the county commission specifically at the last JPA meeting, which was in Tavares at the pavilion, there was Leesburg is happy to do a JPA with the county. I think where our disagreement is what's the JPA going to be about? The JPA that the county seems to insist on is a model whereby the county has influence in your land development regulations. That would make the model have municipal corporations have a more rural feel. I think this body and the former body did not appreciate that influence in our land development regulations. So we pointed to, when I say we, the mayor and I pointed out to the county manager and Commissioner Parks that look at our PUDs that we've approved. Our PUDs, while they may not be as rural as some of the county's perspective, where they were asking for a 1 unit per 5 acres, like what was reflected in Bill 1171, they do restrict the 4-unit total that Leesburg has. They do put in green space that's significant, 30%. They do require street. They do require dark skies. They do require recreational. They do require certain facades. So from a land development standpoint, I think the position that the PUDs that this body approve are good ones that are conducive to urban development for municipal corporation, and the ones that take into account good planning principles that comes from our planning department. I don't think the county's read our PUDs.
That is correct.
Having said that, where I think a JPA is worthwhile is a JPA that's the flavor of the 2014 ISBA agreement. And that was what was said in Tavares was, if we're going to talk about land development regulations, don't think that's going to float in Leesburg. But if we're going to talk about provisions of municipal service, fire protection, police protection, roads, water, sewer, parks, recreation, library services, if we're going to figure out how to provide those urban services so that we don't cross wires on taxation and duplication of services, then we're all on board to talk about that. And that is a great conversation, and one in, like, for on roads, for example, that we already implement in our PUDs, where every PUD that we approve says, do what the county says with respect to roads. Every PUD. Do what the county says with respect to roads. So if we have a JPA that's in that flavor, then I think Yeah, Leesburg, sure, we'll do a JPA. And I think the question then is, so what kind of JPA does the county want? So I think the mayor and I delivered that message specifically to Commissioner Parks. I think it's important for this body to tell the mayor and myself to meet with all 5 Board of County Commissioners so that they all get the same message from Leesburg, as long as this body is in agreement with that philosophy. There's significant benefit to both parties in the 2014 ISB agreement. By my calculation, the county receives about $2 million of fire services to their advantage in significantly dense, urbanized, unincorporated areas like Plantation, like Highland Lakes, like Bassville Park, like around Silver Lake, where the fire department continually provides fire service for those residents. That number's $2 million. I'll save the formula, but it's a real number and it's a real service. And Leesburg has not complained about that. We agreed to that. We signed on the dotted line in exchange for development as Leesburg sees fit in the inter-service boundary territory that was identified. So as long as we talk about municipal services, then I think that would be what I would encourage this body to do, and I think that feedback's important, and I think that's where I'll leave it for now, and I'll take your direction.
Comments?
I've been on the commission 4 years. I think it's fair to say I've been a pro-growth commissioner. We've approved, I have turned some down over inadequate roads. We've approved a lot of development. I'll come back to that. Because we've approved a lot of development, we have a lot to absorb. So having said that, number 2, I think it's important we have a good relationship with the county. I would be open to modify the JPA. I don't see us in print agreeing to having them meddle in our approvals. We don't need that. I assume there'd be some kind of term on this, 5, 7, 10 years, some kind of limited term.
I think that's something that you would negotiate.
I know our development has been down, well, for the most part, it's been down 27. We've approved other developments, but the 27 corridor is growing fast, becoming congested. I don't really see us going further east in the near term. I know that's very sensitive to the county, so I guess I'm trying to give them something. I mean, that's the rural protection area. So, if we can somehow work with them and make them happy on the rural protection area, we need to work out this fire agreement. That's not, especially with the pressures we're getting on budget. I don't want to give the county $2 million in fire service. We need to fix that. So that's a reason for us to want to do an agreement with them. And lastly, I think most importantly, I want to have a good relationship with the county because we need their help on roads. I mean, either right or wrong, we are growing. Our roads are not adequate, and we've got to work together on that. So I may come back and have comments later, but I want to kind of start with that right there. So I'm at least open-minded, but I'm not going to let them tie our hands. At least not for any period of time. I don't even think I'd let them tie our hands at all. I think we need to convince them that we can make them happy with the growth plans we have. I think we can continue to improve on developments. I'm happy with the ones we've done, but I think we can probably do better in the future. But I'll stop right there.
Yeah, just following up to what Commissioner Peterson said, and something that Al said earlier about not reading the PUD. When you compare the PUDs we approved in that area to what the county has done in that area, the numbers, Al, it's, we're at about 3 per acre.
I think our average, the contested area, and I don't mean to be
give them the numbers.
The contested area is a box that's about 3 miles long by 1 mile wide. That's in the Ulaha-Apopka Rural Protect. That was in the Rural Apopka RPA. So that RPA runs from Lake Apopka, kind of center part of Lake County, all the way across to within about 500 yards of 27. So that box of Whispering Hills, Hodge Hodges, Leiden Nichols, Lake Co. Barkey, I think that you just brought in is actually below it. But I'm missing one in there.
And all of those have been off of 27 except one or two.
Everything I just named is in the box off 27.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But so that's the contested area,
but the point being that they don't recognize, and everybody should recognize, that the requirements we're putting on those PUDs pretty much mirror what the county has done. I mean, it's not like we are saying, hey, we're going to stick 8 units per acre, and our densities are lower than the county densities are there, I believe.
Yeah,
they count it differently. They use net, and we use gross. So there is a different way they calculate. But I think at the end of the day, we're the same, or about the same.
We put together a slide that in that 3 by 1 mile box, the density is about 2.6 units an acre. And if you compare that to urban unincorporated development, Plantation is about 2.9, and Highland Lakes is about 1.9-ish. So, we're right in the box of reasonability. So, in essence, what's across the street and what's to the north is pretty much what's approved right to the south. So it continues a pattern of compact, contiguous urban growth. Down US 27.
So just piggybacking off of that comment, I mean, no one's told me this, but my perception is the county's big concern is that rural protection area. I think, they're looking at us, their perception of the city of Leesburg is we're going to just continue annexing everything eastbound all the way to, can't believe I'm going by Howie in the Hills, which I don't see us doing that. I think we have a lot to digest right now. I'm sorry.
By the 2014 agreement, we can't do that.
Okay.
If you went to Trimpe.
I really don't want to. I mean, I think we need to stay on the major thoroughfares.
Yeah, if you draw a line from Trimpe off of 48 straight down, that's our boundary. And we are basically at that boundary. We really can't, as Al said, with the 2014 agreement, we can't go outside that boundary. We've got those.
But if we can somehow work with the county, I think it's important we have a good relationship with them. If we can somehow work together on roads, fix the fire issue, that's not right, and somehow keep the peace without. I don't want the county meddling and telling us what we can and cannot approve. But I think we can make them happy without having that. I'd like to think we can.
So,
there's one more question. Then I'll be quiet. Where are the other cities on this? I don't see the 14 cities in Leesburg rolling over and saying, I'm going to let the county tell me how I can develop my city. I think it's a tough road.
I think the answer to that, there's 14 different opinions. There's some cities that would be considered, for lack of better words, growth cities like Leesburg. Groveland would be, I wouldn't put them as a growth city, but they have about as many entitlements approved as Leesburg does, but their plan has them a little more scattered in their ISB box. Then there's some cities like Howie, Mount Verde, and maybe even a little bit Mount Dora that are kind of no-growth cities, almost a no-growth position to where the county is more aggressive than they are. And then I would Tavares because Tavares is kind of right in the middle of everything and doesn't have RPAs. They've kind of been gone under the radar on this, I think it's fair to say.
But they're improving a lot too.
Eustis continues to kind of they have their saber crosses with the county, and that the 1171 bill had a big impact on Eustis because of the Emerald Marsh RPA.
So the question remains: what going forward? We need to decide as a group: do we want to explore entering into a JPA? Do we want to? It's my understanding that the county has a contract with the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council. And, you know, it's a third party that is brokering the deals. Dan, do you have any comments?
No, sir.
Not really. Okay. But that's who the county did partner with, and that is who is supposed to be, running the show for, do we have a desire to move forward with a JPA?
I have no interest in.
No interest whatsoever?
Not at all.
Okay. Any other comments?
I mean, I'll summarize my comments. I think it would be important to talk to them about it, but I'm not repeating myself. I don't see why we would have the county get involved in our land development approvals, which, I mean, you could say, we might as well just say no, Peterson, but I think we can find some compromise, keep them happy on how we approve developments, and try to improve our roads and fix our fire imbalance and, just everything. I mean, I think we can always, strive to try and be better, but...
I'm open to having a discussion, but I don't think the county has. I don't want the county meddling in our.
Yeah, if they're in a no-growth mode, and their goal is to come here and just clip our wings and stop us from annexing and doing developments, we're not going to see eye to eye.
I have a question. Were there any complaints, or have there been any complaints about our PUDs? What has been done?
They don't read them. They didn't know. In the meetings we were in, it was very clear to me. I don't know if Al felt the same way, but let me back up. We asked if they read the Whispering Hills PUD, and the answer was no. They were complaining about how we do development, and they hadn't read the PUD. So, it is our position, it was my position, that we are, when you compare what the county does to what we do, we are not that far off from their,
well, I've been,
units per acre, dark sky lighting, trees in the yard, roads up to, standards.
Well, if everything is considered and listed, what would be the difference? I mean, just to have it.
Well, to me, when I don't know, but it sounds like to me in a joint planning agreement that there is some kind of agreement to what gets annexed and what doesn't get annexed.
Yeah, the ISBA has no bite for them, so they want something with bite.
To go away.
No, actually, I think I would just frame that the opposite. The ISBA does have big bite for them. They're a financial benefit. Now there's not a look. So I don't want.
I'm learning here. I'm learning.
Take this wrong. There's not a direct finance. The city ain't writing a check to the county for $2 million. But that number is based on an average per call number. So number of calls divided by total budget.
But we're covering their territory more than they're covering ours.
By about 1,000 calls a year. So what that means is that's 1,000 calls a year the county doesn't have to cover, that we cover for them. At their cost rate, that's a $2 million advantage for them. But that allows them to keep resources in other places, and we cover it for them. Now, we still have, Chief Mayor, if Chief Mayor's in here, we're still going to say we still have a good LOS for incorporated Leesburg and unincorporated Leesburg. So the residents in the Leesburg ISBA box are getting a good level of service for emergency services. But that LOS is a partnership between Lake and Leesburg, and that was ironed out in the 2014 ISBA in exchange for Leesburg gets to land develop in that box as this body sees best. That was the quid pro quo. So the county's saying they don't like how we've land developed because we've taken in RPA, Rural Protection Area, and they're ignoring the fact that they were party to the agreement that says that we could annex that area if we provide fire services, and we have provided those services.
How much of our development was in the Rural Protection Area? I mean, just south of 27, just roughly. I mean,
there's about 6,500 units.
Percentage-wise, is it 25%?
6,000 of 30.
Okay, so it's
like
20%. Oh, okay, so it's a small.
Of the RPA, of the land, what we're talking.
You have Commissioner, you have that map that's handy. Now, this is a map I sent out to the entire commission, so it's in your box. But that map right there on the front that you're looking at, that shows the Ulaha RPA. I think the last one there's a blow up. The Ulaha basic, I don't know what percentage that 3 by 1 mile box of the Ulaha RPA is. The mayor would argue, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, that area is a burnout orange grove that's on a U.S. highway that's plum picking for development, and it's not an environmentally sensitive area that has significant marsh and wetlands that goes back and needs to be preserved, like the Green Swamp.
Well, but the roads are inadequate there too. So I mean, I don't see us, supporting development back there on clay roads, and I mean that's a rural area there.
You talk about east of Dewey Robbins, or east of
what we've approved already.
road.
East of what we've approved. I'm going to use our current footprint of annexation.
We're at the border.
I just don't see us marching east. I think we have a lot to absorb. Stay on the corridors.
Yeah, we are not marching east pursuant.
I think they perceive we are. We're going to. I think they perceive us as marching over the hills right into Howie.
Maybe so.
The perception may be there.
That's perception. I mean, I don't think that's where this commission is. I mean,
but we're going by what we call the rule book of the ISBA, which spells out those parcels that we can and cannot annex. And it's That's correct.
So that's what makes it tough for me. But I started with, we've annexed a heck of a lot of property. I think Leesburg has a lot to digest. And now you have the economy cooling. I'm still optimistic, but you have the economy cooling a little bit. It's going to take us 10, 15 years to absorb what we've already approved in a good economy.
So I think that's an important conversation. What Commissioner Peterson, what you're saying about absorption of the entitlements that have been approved the last few years, it was also something that when Mayor Burry and I were at the Tavares JPA that we also mentioned, because not only do you have the issue, Commissioner Peterson, that you brought up, but you also have the infrastructure issue that was laid out before the developers, and that was, hey, all these entitlements that have approved, y'all need to pony up some of your impact fee money ahead of time so that we can build that sewer interceptor. And if that sewer interceptor line isn't built, then that development doesn't happen. So that's been told to the county as well.
We had that one development where everybody yelled at us about inadequate roads, and we said, you need to go talk to the county because, we don't approve, those, the widening of, in this case, County Road 44. But we need roads. We need roads. So we need to find some kind of common ground with the county. I mean, didn't I learn somewhere along the way there's been more money spent in South Lake than North Lake on roads? I mean, I don't want to say the wrong thing here, but
that's a true statement.
Okay, somewhere along the way, I was educated that there's been an extraordinary amount of money spent in South Lake on roads, and we're not getting our fair share in North Lake. I'll stop right there. So there's a lot of issues here we need to work through.
Any other comments? So direction for our city manager going forward with regard to joint planning, are we, Commissioner Connell has indicated that he doesn't want anything to do with it. We have, some of the other commissioners have mentioned that we think we could come to some kind of agreement with regard to services as long as there is not a takeaway from the ISB agreements of 2013.
There has to be a way to work through that because there has to be a way to work through it, in my opinion. But I don't want them telling us what we can and cannot approve. I'll stand by that. And I know Al doesn't want that. I don't think anybody up here wants that.
No.
That would just destroy our reputation for development.
So look up the TDRs because that was another issue that the county wanted us to consider. They wanted us to accept TDRs from developers. We could say specifically what areas those TDRs could be used in. I'm just the messenger.
What's funny about that? Well, I won't go sideways, but it's that whole strong towns thing. I mean, but so the guy next door can put twice as much on his land, and then the land next door is vacant, which is great in certain categories, but doesn't fix my road problem.
Well, if you take
got the same number of houses.
Where this is successful, if you take a county like Alachua County, these guys on the outskirts, out in the country, are selling those development rights. And then the high-rises are being built in the city of Gainesville.
That's a good thing. Okay.
That's where that density is going. And Commissioner Parks was pointing out that our future is probably not going to be continually going out.
I do respect some of their efforts to keep portions of the county rural.
At some point, you got to start thinking about going up.
Yeah, and they're trying to look into the future and protect
that's what they're looking at the crystal ball. They're they don't want the whole county just rooftops. So the TDR is one way that you address that to save rural property and make the inner cities.
Well, I've heard county commissioners say in meetings they don't want Lake County to look like Orange County. I respect and appreciate that.
There you go.
So once again, I think we can find some compromise.
So direction going forward, is this the conversation to an end on TDR, or joint planning, or do you want to discuss this in greater length? I would like some direction from the board.
Further discussion, I would think.
Okay, so how should we proceed with that? We just need to make a decision. If you recommend further discussion, is it when's the next?
It's just to discuss. I mean, I don't agree. Just not to allow them to make the decisions for us. But if we're doing everything, we're meeting requirements now, and there's no complaints, I don't understand what would be the problem. So.
Just to put a bow on the conversation, if I could, and I don't. I think the commissioners individually here in Leesburg range from no talking with the county to ensuring that we have quality relationship with the county. I think everybody's on the same page as far as if we get into a JPA, it needs to be flavored about how we provide municipal services and not how we implement land development regulations. And I think it's also important to state publicly too that we think that we need to have a mutual beneficial relationship with the county, and that relationship is important, and we don't need to have some of the scuttlebutt and discontent that has certainly transpired over assumptions on both parties about where we're at the JPA. And towards that endeavor, the mayor and the city manager should meet with the county commissioners individually, and we will report back to this body periodically to talk about developments that have come up and agendize the conversation here at appropriate times when developments have transpired beyond what we've discussed here today.
And if they want to tie in TDC grants, they can, keep their money.
I'm sure that message has been delivered.
Yeah, and we have contacted, or I have contacted Doug Shields, which, Leesburg, if you look at how the Leesburg's cut up, we actually have three different commissioners that are kind of responsible for a certain area of Leesburg. So we're trying to get, obviously Kirby Smith was one, Doug Shields is another, and then Josh Blake. So I have made the call. I have not received a call back yet. I think Al may have talked to Jennifer.
Actually, I talked to Commissioner Shields at the lead meeting on Thursday, and he said to work through the administrative staff to set something up.
Yeah, so we are going to move forward, trying to meet each one of them and explain our position to them. we're in agreement that as long as they don't try to tell us what we can and cannot do, and we stick to those accords from the ISB, that we can move into a nice agreement. Is that good? Okay, that's all I got. Motion to adjourn?
Thank you.